You need to understand something before anything in your life changes. Motivation was never designed to carry you. Motivation was never meant to sustain you. It is emotional caffeine, powerful at first, but short-lived. And the truth is simple. If your life only moves when you feel like it, you will live your entire life behind people who move regardless of mood. Motivation fades. Discipline stays. That's the difference. That's the key. The world has conditioned you to believe that you must feel inspired before you take action. You wait for energy. You wait for momentum. You wait for the inner push. But every day that you wait, you delay the future you could be living. Every day you rely on motivation, you reinforce weakness. Because life doesn't reward excitement. Life rewards repetition. Think about anyone you admire. The athlete, the entrepreneur, the writer, the musician. You don't see the mornings when they felt nothing. You don't see the afternoons when their head was hurting, when their energy dipped, when their friends were relaxing but they stayed consistent. That consistency wasn't motivation. That was discipline. Quiet, private discipline. You have a decision today. Do you wait for feelings, or do you move regardless of them? Here's the truth most people don't like hearing. You are not tired. You are undisciplined. Fatigue is often a mask that covers inconsistency. When you are truly consistent, your body adapts. Your mind strengthens. Your tolerance rises. What breaks others begins to strengthen you. Motivation tells you. Start when it feels right. Discipline tells you. Start because it must be done. And this is where transformation happens, not when you feel inspired, but when you act without emotion. That's the moment personal power is built. When you rely on motivation, every day becomes a negotiation. Do I want to? Am I ready? Maybe tomorrow. But people of discipline don't negotiate. They execute. You need a new concept in your life. Movement over momentum. You don't need a burst of inspiration. You need movement. Small movement. Daily movement. 30 minutes of intentional effort change you far. More than 3 hours of occasional enthusiasm. Some days will feel flat. Some days will feel empty. Some days will feel heavy. You do it anyway. You have a choice, and every choice leaves a trace. Because repetition communicates something to your brain. I do this regardless of how I feel. And by repeating it, you turn behavior into identity. You run today not because you were motivated, but because you said you would. Identity reinforced, confidence earned, focus sharpened. You studied tonight not because you were curious, but because the work must be completed. Identity reinforced, discipline strengthened. Results compounded. That's the key. You compound your future with tiny, consistent acts. Now think about the people who are always waiting. The ones who start and stop. The ones who constantly announce change, but never sustain it. They don't lack desire. Most of them genuinely want improvement. What they lack is repetition. Unexciting repetition. Quiet repetition. The kind that nobody applauds, but everyone eventually sees. Here's a rule you need to adopt. Commit without emotional involvement. Emotion can join you, but it cannot lead you. Emotion can enhance the work, but it cannot decide if the work happens. When emotion becomes the driver, Discipline evaporates. This is why New Year resolutions collapse by February. The emotion fades. The excitement dissolves. But you must continue, because your future is not built through intensity. It is built through consistency. Intensity is loud. Consistency is silent. And only one of them creates real transformation. Let's break this down practically. You stop waiting by shrinking commitments into something executable. Don't say, "I will rebuild my entire life this month." Say, "I will complete 45 minutes of disciplined practice today." Don't say, "I will transform my finances instantly." Say, "I will automate $50 weekly into savings whether I feel like it or not." Don't say, "I will become mentally unstoppable." Say, "I will sit through discomfort without distraction." That's the shift. That's discipline. You don't need energy. You need consistency. You don't need applause. You need repetition. You don't need permission. You need commitment. Because when you rely on motivation, you are reacting. But when you rely on discipline, you are deciding. And decision creates identity. Here is a real-world example. Professional runners don't ask whether they feel like running. They run because their identity is a runner. Writers don't wait for inspiration. They write because their identity is a writer. Founders don't wait for energy. They act because the business needs movement. Identity first. Emotion second. Action regardless. That is the sequence. The people who live average lives misunderstand this. They wait for alignment. They wait for optimal conditions. They wait for excitement. And because they wait, nothing builds. They restart constantly. They reset constantly. They rebuild constantly. You don't need resets, you need a rhythm. Rhythm over restart. Movement over momentum. Discipline over motivation. Repeat those phrases until they embed themselves into your thinking. When you act without motivation, something profound happens. The resistance starts to fade. Your emotional tolerance rises. Tasks feel less draining. Effort becomes familiar. Decision becomes automatic. This is where real freedom begins, not when you want to do something, but when you no longer need desire to do it. When something becomes automatic, it becomes effortless. When it becomes effortless, it becomes identity. And when it becomes identity, nothing can remove it. If you only act when excitement is present, you are a follower of your emotions. If you act no matter how you feel, you become a leader of your life. You have a choice. Right now. Today. This episode ends. And your routine either begins or continues. Tonight. When you don't want to move. When your mind says later, act now. When excuses appear, decide instead. Because every time you choose discipline over motivation, you strengthen your future self. You build the version of you that executes without thought. And that version of you will outperform everyone who still relies on emotional spikes. Here is the truth too. Remember, you are not behind in life. You are behind in repetition. Repetition fixes everything. Repetition builds skill. Repetition builds confidence. Repetition makes outcomes predictable. Your life changes the moment you stop waiting. Not tomorrow. Not when the timing is better. Not when you feel ready. You Act now because you said you would, and that is discipline. You just learned the foundational principle of change. Now we go deeper, because stopping the waiting is only step one. You mastered your hesitation. Now, let's confront the silent enemy that destroys progress. Let's start with the truth most people avoid. Motivation is not coming to save you. Motivation is not a life strategy. Motivation is not a reliable system. Motivation is a spark, brief, temporary. Emotional land. You cannot build a lasting future using something that disappears. When conditions change, that's the key. If your movement depends on your mood, then your results will always be unstable. Motivation fades. Discipline stays. Think about that. Really think about it. Because the moment you stop waiting for motivation is the moment your life becomes predictable. And predictable actions generate predictable results. You see someone winning financially, physically, mentally, and you think they're inspired. They're not. They are simply consistent. They move regardless of how they feel. That is the difference between wanting change and building change. Every morning, you have a choice: wake up and wait, or wake up and start. Most people wait. They wait for energy. They wait for the right mood. They wait for excitement. They wait for when it feels right. And waiting is the ultimate enemy of progress. Waiting is disguised avoidance. Waiting becomes your identity. Your brain does not respond to excitement. Your brain responds to repetition. You train your future by repeating the same action daily, not occasionally, not when convenient, but daily. And repetition creates a behavioral default. The more you repeat, the less emotional involvement you need. That means eventually, effort stops requiring effort. You don't need momentum, you need movement. That's the key. Movement, even small movement, creates alignment. Movement, even imperfect movement, creates identity. Movement, even quiet movement, creates progress. Let's talk about how you think. You assume that you must feel the right emotion first. You assume that feeling leads action. But in real transformation, action comes first. Emotion catches up later. A business owner doesn't wake up every morning excited to manage payroll. An athlete doesn't always want to train when the body hurts. A student doesn't always want to study after a long day. But the disciplined do it anyway. Why? Because they decided ahead of time. And decision removes negotiation. Right now, most things in your life are negotiations. Do I feel like doing it? Maybe later. I'll start next week. I'll start when I'm ready. Let me tell you something directly. If you wait until you're ready, you'll never start. Because readiness is a feeling, and feelings are inconsistent. You have a choice: decide or delay. The people you admire, the ones executing at a high level, aren't driven by feelings. They are driven by identity. They don't ask, "Do I want to?" They operate from "This is what I do." Identity determines consistency. Consistency determines results. Let's make it practical. You want to get fit. Commit to 35 minutes a day. No negotiation. You want to build new skills. Read 20 pages every evening. No negotiation. You want financial growth. Invest weekly, even if small. No negotiation. The system matters more than intensity. Intensity is emotional. Intensity burns brighter. There is a form of laziness that destroys you long before anyone notices. It doesn't look loud. It doesn't look obvious. It's subtle, quiet, private. But it compounds. And when it compounds, it costs you your future. That's the key. The most dangerous laziness is not when you cancel a date, it's when you silently lower your standard and pretend it doesn't matter. Hidden laziness is when you skip something and justify it. Hidden laziness is when you delay something and defend it. Hidden laziness is when you avoid something and disguise it as later. Neglect has a debt, and you will always pay it later. You think missing one day doesn't matter, but missing one day becomes to become 4. 4 becomes 10. You don't fall behind in one moment, you fall behind in fragments. This is how businesses crumble. This is how health collapses. This is how confidence erodes. Not loud failure, silent neglect. You have a choice every day. Ignore the invisible obligations or honor them. The disciplined honor what no one sees. The undisciplined pretend those things don't matter. That's the key. Hidden laziness slowly rewrites your identity. When you avoid the hard thing long enough, your brain learns something destructive. I don't follow through. And once your brain believes that, your confidence collapses. Not because someone doubted you, but because you doubt yourself. It's not external loss, it's internal erosion. You say you'll wake up early. You don't. Your brain records that. You say you'll work out today. You don't. Your brain records that. You say you'll start that plan. You don't. Your brain records that. Confidence isn't built through compliments, it's built through consistency. Every time you avoid something, you lower your relationship with yourself. You don't trust you. That is the cost of hidden laziness, because you know the truth. Not doing it wasn't about time. Not doing it wasn't about not being capable. Not doing it wasn't because you lacked the ability. It was because you didn't choose discipline. That is the pain no one talks about. Falling behind hurts later. A foundation doesn't collapse when the first crack shows. It collapses when all the ignored cracks finally break. That's exactly how life works. You collapse publicly because you took shortcuts privately. That's the key. People think outcomes are immediate. They're not. Outcomes are delayed. You don't. Fail today because of today's laziness. You fail weeks or months later. You don't lose opportunities when you stop showing up. Once you lose them. When that becomes your new pattern, hidden laziness is invisible until it's irreversible. Let's call it what it is. Shortcuts disguised as logic. Avoidance disguised as fatigue. Inconsistency disguised as rest. You didn't rest. You avoided. There is a difference. Rest is intentional recovery. Avoidance is fear disguised as taking a break. Most people don't evaluate that difference. Let me show you how hidden laziness compounds. A runner misses 7 days. The body resets. An investor misses weekly contributions. Wealth resets. A student avoids repetition. Memory resets. A creator stops producing. Progress resets. The price is delayed, but guaranteed. Neglect has interest. Interest multiplies. If you walk away from responsibility today, you will face a greater bill tomorrow. That is not punishment, that is cause and effect. You have a choice every day, right now. Either you protect your routine or you weaken your future. Let's talk identity again, because identity is where hidden laziness causes true destruction. When you stop doing something, you don't just lose the result. You lose the identity that produced the result. Stop waking up early long enough. You stop believing you're someone who honors discipline. Stop training long enough. You stop believing you're someone who takes care of your health. Stop studying long enough. You stop believing you're capable of mastery. The undisciplined pretend. The disciplined repeat. That's the difference. The undisciplined talk about what they could do. The disciplined quietly do it. The undisciplined explain their potential. The disciplined build proof. Hidden laziness keeps you trapped in the theoretical version of your life. I could write a book. I could be in shape. I could build something great. But potential is meaningless when repetition is absent. Here's the transformation moment. Stop tolerating broken promises you make to yourself. Not the big ones, the small ones. The tiny little moments you dismiss are the ones that destroy progress. Because every time you skip, your mind forms justification. Justification becomes habit. Habit becomes identity. Identity becomes reality. So what do you do? First, identify invisible effort. Invisible effort means doing things no one congratulates, praises, or notices. Tracking expenses. Reading before bed. Stretching when tired. Planning tomorrow's actions. Cleaning your environment. Finishing your tasks after everyone stopped caring. That's discipline. Second, evaluate emotional excuses. Ask yourself, do I genuinely need rest, or am I avoiding responsibility? Third, shorten the window between decision and execution. If you don't act immediately, excuses multiply. Real transformation happens when you shorten delay. No internal debate. No emotional reasoning. No bargaining. You do the thing because you said you would. Fourth, build consequences. If you skip something, you must make up for it. No erasing. No pretending the day didn't matter. This is how people who take life seriously operate. Because their future is not optional. Finally, document consistency. Not for motivation, but for accountability. When you see the streak, you protect it. When you see gaps, you correct them. Track your consistency privately. Don't broadcast it. Don't ask for congratulations. You don't need their permission. You need alignment between your goals and your discipline. Let's make something absolutely undeniable. What you fail to do privately will expose you publicly. You collapsed during pressure because you skipped the private preparation. You choked during opportunity because you avoided the unseen work. You diminished during competition because your foundation was weak. Not because you didn't have talent, but because you didn't honor repetition. This is the cost of hidden laziness. Everything breaks later. Your confidence breaks later. Your opportunities break later. Your potential breaks later. When someone wins publicly, it's not new. That success was built during unseen consistency. And when someone fails publicly, that failure also isn't new. It was built during private neglect. That is reality. You just confronted the true price of avoidance, excuses, and quiet inconsistency. Now, we move into the next level. Because stopping hidden laziness isn't enough. You must build something stronger in isolation, something no applause can influence, and no distraction can weaken. You recognize what destroys progress. Now you must understand where your future is truly built. Your future is not built in the spotlight. It is not built when people clap for you. It is not built when others validate you. Your future is built in isolation. When nobody knows. When nobody sees. When nobody texts you to keep going. Your work doesn't need witnesses. That's the key. Because if your growth depends on applause, then your commitment is conditional. And conditional commitment collapses under pressure. Isolation strips away noise. Isolation removes performance. Isolation forces honesty. In isolation, you see the truth of your habits, your patterns. Your stamina, your actual level of effort. You can't pretend when you're alone. You can't fake discipline alone. There is no audience to distract you. No one to impress. No one to perform for. Your future is built in isolation. Think about every meaningful achievement you admire. Books that changed culture were written alone. Thousands of pages typed before anyone read one sentence. Albums produced in windowless studios at midnight. Athletes putting in repetitions when the stadiums were empty. Software and companies built in cramped apartments, garages, basements, small rooms with borrowed equipment. No spotlight. No crowd. Just repetition. Just discipline. Just a decision repeated daily. And that's the important part. You have a choice. You can chase visibility, or you can commit to mastery. You can chase attention, or you can build identity. You don't need their permission. You need consistency. Silence is the environment where mastery grows. Say it again. Silence is the environment where mastery grows. That is the soil where progress roots. And here is why. When you remove applause, your effort becomes pure. You do it because it matters, not because they approve, not because they noticed, not because someone congratulated you. You do it because you said you would. You must understand something. Isolation is the gym for your character. It trains grit. It trains discipline. It trains emotional control. Because no one is watching you choose discomfort. No one sees when you stay committed. Isolation exposes whether you are loyal to your goals or just attracted to the idea of success. Many people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they can't tolerate being unseen. They need someone cheering. They need someone acknowledging their progress. They need someone validating their sacrifice. But the disciplined do not wait for recognition. They repeat the work silently. They build foundations privately. They outgrow their old identity quietly. And later, the results emerge loudly. You don't collapse publicly if you built correctly privately. But here's the danger. If you run from isolation, you run from evolution. When you avoid stillness, you avoid responsibility. When you avoid being alone, you avoid accountability. When you avoid the quiet, you avoid truth. Silence is uncomfortable because you meet your real self there. Your doubts, your excuses, your unfinished promises. That discomfort is growth. Let's break this down practically. If you want a stronger body, you have to train when no one sees you. You have to show up without posting it. No. Repetition is not glamorous. Repetition is not exciting. Repetition is not inspiring. But repetition is transformational. That's the key. Repetition turns effort into skill. Repetition turns intention into identity. Repetition turns possibility into reality. You have a choice. You can chase motivation, or you can repeat execution. You can wait for inspiration, or you can build discipline through repetition. Because repetition is the evidence of discipline, people talk about discipline, very few repeat. Their actions long enough for that discipline to become visible. Most people want change, but resist repetition. They want reward without ritual. They want transformation without training. But results don't come from desire. Results come from repeated action. Say it again. Repetition turns effort into skill. Here is what most people don't understand. Your brain doesn't reward emotion. Your brain rewards repetition. You don't wire habits through enthusiasm. You wire habits through frequency. That morning routine you repeat, it rewires you. That workout done again and again and again, it shapes identity. That journaling habit, that planning session, that daily review, those are not tasks. Those are psychological anchors. When repeated, they build identity. When sustained, they produce confidence. The disciplined repeat, the undisciplined restart. That's the difference. Look at the people who achieve mastery. They rehearse the same actions relentlessly. They sharpen the same skill endlessly. They repeat until repetition becomes normal. Musicians drilling scales. Athletes perfecting the same movements. Traders reviewing charts again and again. Writers editing the same page 25 times. You don't admire their talent. You admire the outcome of repetition. And here's the truth. If it feels boring, you're likely getting better. Growth rarely feels exciting. Mastery rarely feels stimulating. Improvement rarely feels dramatic. But repetition is building something you cannot see yet. You repeat now so you harvest later. That's how the cycle works. Let's get practical. You want to be emotionally stronger? Then repeat emotional control. Pause daily. Respond instead of react daily. Choose clarity instead of impulse daily. Do it once, and it's self-help. Do it daily, and it's identity. You want physical change. Repeat training. Repeat healthy eating. Repeat sleep discipline. Not for 3 days. Not for 3 weeks. Repeating until others can't recognize you. You want financial elevation. Repeat your planning. Repeat tracking your spending. Repeat skill building. Repeat until the results become undeniable. Because repetition proves seriousness. Repetition validates intention. And repetition exposes pretenders. Anyone can start. Few can repeat. That's why repetition is the evidence of discipline. The reason repetition matters isn't just muscle or execution. It is psychological. When you repeat an action, your brain shifts from discomfort to familiarity. Familiarity becomes consistency. Consistency becomes confidence. Then confidence becomes identity. Repetition conditions identity. You don't build confidence telling yourself you're capable. You build confidence by repeating proof. You don't convince yourself you're disciplined. You repeat discipline until it becomes unquestioned. You don't wait for belief. You embody belief through repetition. That's how powerful repetition is. The undisciplined pretend. The disciplined repeat. But repetition has a specific challenge. There is no immediate reward. You show up today, nothing changes. You show up tomorrow, nothing changes. You repeat for weeks, still nothing obvious. And this is where people break. Because repetition feels invisible before it becomes undeniable. You repeat now so you harvest later. That's how mastery works. Not instantly, not emotionally. Not with applause. Delayed reward is a maturity test. Your future self is shaped by the investments your present self is willing to repeat. No investment repeated means no identity formed. You have a choice. Wait for visible results, or repeat until results appear. Repetition removes decision fatigue. Think of a morning routine repeated daily. Wake up. No debate. Workout. No discussion. Plan the day. No negotiation. Because repetition eliminates choice. Discipline reduces options. Structure removes emotional interference. Your brain loves patterns, and repetition is pattern creation. The more you repeat, the less you hesitate. The less you hesitate, the more you execute. The more you execute, the more you evolve. That is the process. Repetition is not about perfection. It is about reinforcement. You don't need enthusiasm. You don't need excitement. You don't need applause. You need repetition. That's the key. Think about a sculptor. They don't see results in one strike. They don't reveal the shape with one cut. They don't transform stone with one movement. They repeat. Chip. Refine. Shape. Polish. Thousands of micro movements. Until stone reveals form. Until structure emerges. Until the work becomes visible. Mastery always begins as repetition. Identity always begins as repetition. Discipline always begins as repetition. Let's break the real barrier. The reason people don't repeat is because repetition removes excuses. When you repeat, you take responsibility. You cannot say, "I tried." You either repeat or you didn't. It dismantles emotional narratives. It exposes self-deception. It reveals whether you actually want the result. Repetition tells the truth. You repeat what matters to you. You neglect what doesn't. And here's the truth that many avoid. Your habits tell you your priorities more honestly than your intentions ever will. Your repetition reveals your identity more accurately than your goals ever will. So if you want a different identity, change what you repeat. Your routine is the blueprint for your becoming. This chapter is about reality. Not motivation. Not hype. Reality. You evolve through repetition, not through emotion. You build through repetition. Not through intensity. You win through repetition, not through enthusiasm. Your life will always echo your repeated behaviors. Repetition is the evidence of discipline. So repeat deliberately, repeat consistently, repeat until routine becomes non-negotiable. Your future self depends on what you repeat today. And repetition has a destination. Confidence. Mastery. Self-respect. Capability. You repeat now so you harvest later. You've learned the truth of repetition. You've learned that mastery is predictable. Now it's time for something deeper. Consistency means nothing without emotional neutrality. If your emotions still control you, discipline collapses. So let's go further. Your life expands only in proportion to your tolerance for discomfort. That's the truth most people run from. That's the truth people refuse to confront. Your threshold for discomfort is your ceiling. You don't grow where you are comfortable. You grow where discomfort begins. Growth hurts first. That's the key. Muscles tear before they strengthen. Confidence cracks before it stabilizes. Identity dissolves before it rebuilds. Growth hurts first. And you have a choice. When discomfort arrives, you stop or you stay. One path leads to average. The other leads to transformation. You want to advance? Increase what you can endure. The reason discomfort matters is simple. Discomfort interrupts the default version of you. Comfort reinforces old patterns. Discomfort creates new ones. Comfort keeps you predictable. Discomfort rewrites identity. Think about training. Nobody gets stronger lifting weights that feel light. Nobody increases resilience doing only what is familiar. Nobody expands by repeating only what stays easy. Growth hurts first. That pain isn't punishment. It's evidence you've crossed into a growing zone. Your brain has two impulses: protect identity or expand identity. Comfort protects, discomfort expands. You have a choice. Here is the problem. People stop at the exact moment growth begins. They start writing and stop when it's not flowing. They start exercising and stop when muscles burn. They start building something, stop when it gets complicated. Average people stop when discomfort starts. High performers continue until discomfort becomes baseline. That's the difference. Your growth is not measured by what you start. Your growth is measured by what you endure. A runner who stops at pain remains slow. A leader who avoids conflict remains replaceable. A dreamer who quits at resistance remains unknown. Your threshold defines your future. Let's get practical. Track your discomfort zones weekly. Literally track them. Ask yourself daily, where did I stop today? Where did I fold? Where did I retreat? And then extend that threshold slowly, consistently, deliberately. Run 10% farther. Study 10 minutes longer. Push into the awkward conversation instead of avoiding it. Enter silence instead of escaping into distraction. Growth hurts first. Every time you extend your discomfort threshold, you extend your future. Because the part of you that survives discomfort becomes your new identity. That's the key. Your biggest breakthroughs didn't come when life was easy. They came when you were stretched, when you were questioned. When life pressed you into something unfamiliar. Even biologically, discomfort precedes adaptation. Muscles repair stronger than before. Skin regenerates tougher. Nerves recalibrate to stress. The body doesn't evolve because you rested. It evolves because you endured. That's not metaphor. That's physiology. And mentally, it's identical. When you endure discomfort, you update your internal narrative. You stop saying, "I can't handle this," and you begin saying, "Nothing here can break me." That's identity creation. That's real power. Let's confront something uncomfortable. Most people crave convenience. Convenience kills growth. Comfort is addictive. Ease is addictive. Protection is addictive. But protection is prison when you want success. Comfort is the cage where potential dies. If you stop when something burns, you stay weak. If you stop when something stretches you, you stay average. If you back away when something feels uncertain, you remain the same. You dawn. There will come a moment unexpected, undeniable, where what you've been building privately becomes visible publicly, and people will call it talent. They will call it natural ability. They will call it overnight success. But you will know the truth. What they are seeing now is the result of the discipline you maintained. When no one knew you were working, confidence is proof of preparation. That's the key. The person who rehearsed speaks effortlessly. The person who repeatedly trained moves efficiently. The person who studied endlessly decides clearly. Your private discipline becomes public confidence. You don't get calm on stage at the moment you speak. You get calm because the preparation was done long before the moment arrived. That's how quiet work becomes undeniable. Here is the mistake many people make. They confuse visibility with achievement. They think success is created when the world sees it. That is incorrect. Success is built in advance. Success is revealed, not constructed, in the spotlight moment. You win long before others notice. That moment of recognition is not the moment success was created, it is simply the moment. Success became visible by the time they see it. You already earned it. Read that again. By the time they see it. You already earned it. Quiet discipline compounds until the world can no longer ignore the results. That's the difference between pretenders and professionals. Pretenders practice when someone is watching. Professionals practice when no one cares. You have a choice. You can perform to be seen, or perform because excellence is the standard. Only one path compounds. Think of the person who speaks confidently in any room. Their confidence wasn't born in that moment. It was built in unseen hours, reading, practicing, rehearsing, critiquing, adjusting, repeating. Hundreds of private repetitions created one effortless presentation. But here is the irony. People think confidence is personality. Confidence is preparation. Confidence is proof of repetition. Confidence is evidence of private investment. Public presence is simply a delayed broadcast of private decision. The reason quiet work matters is because quiet builds resilience. Quiet builds self-trust. Quiet removes performance for approval. Quiet strengthens identity. When you work privately, you detach from applause. You detach from expectation. You detach from external validation. You discover discipline not fueled by attention. You build effort without witnesses. And here's the powerful outcome. When you don't need an audience, you become unstoppable when you finally have one. You don't need their permission. You don't need their encouragement. You don't need their belief. Your foundation is internal. That's the key. Let me show you how delayed visibility works. The author writes in obscurity. Years of pages no one sees. Late-night drafts. Deleted paragraphs. Revisions that nobody applauds. Then one moment a launch. Day, a bestseller chart. An interview, and strangers believe the victory happened that day. But the author knows the real win happened on the mornings they wrote when nothing was guaranteed. Quiet pages created public recognition. Same with athletes. Same with musicians. Same with architects. Same with professionals at the top of their lane. People think the result is impressive. But what you should admire is the discipline that preceded it. The world eventually sees what you privately built. Let's go deeper. Why does quiet discipline translate into confidence? Because repetition eliminates doubt. When you have prepared privately, your nervous system trusts you. You know you can perform because you already proved it to yourself. Doubt cannot survive against repetition. Fear cannot dominate someone who has already executed thousands of times. Self-belief is not born from affirmation. It is born from completion. Confidence doesn't come from saying I can. Confidence comes from having done the work repeatedly. That's why quiet discipline matters. It trains your identity. You don't just hope you're capable. You already know, because you've tested it privately. You've experienced it privately. You've earned it privately. But you must understand something critical. Private work is lonely. Private work is uncelebrated. Private work is misunderstood. People won't understand your priorities. People will question your choices. People will call you obsessive because results are invisible early. You will work without applause. You will sacrifice without recognition. You will build without validation. But that is why quiet work produces unstoppable individuals. You are no longer driven by reaction, you are driven by conviction. Your strength isn't fueled by audience response, it is fueled by repetition. Your capability isn't built to impress, it is built to endure. You have a choice: work for acknowledgement or work for mastery. Choose mastery. Here is what happens when quiet work compounds. You stop fearing pressure. You show up prepared while others panic. You execute calmly while others crumble. Your results look effortless. People call it confidence, but it's proof of commitment. People call it talent, but it's evidence of discipline. People call it luck, but it's simply delayed visibility. The moment where people finally notice you is rarely the moment you became capable. That moment is just the reveal. And you earned that reveal long before spectators arrived. By the time they see it, you already earned it. Let's shift into instruction. Create a private excellence routine. Not public. Not posted. Not shared. Private. Wake up early and read. Practice your craft daily. Refine your skill repeatedly. Increase your competency incrementally. Document your work privately. Track your repetition privately. Hold yourself accountable privately, because private discipline becomes public advantage. When opportunity shows up, you don't scramble. You execute. Opportunity rewards preparation. And preparation done publicly is usually performative. Preparation done privately is powerful. You've now understood something most people never realize. Success isn't created in the moment of recognition. Success is revealed through recognition. By the time people discover you, you already built yourself. By the time they praise you, you already earned it. By the time they admire you, your discipline has already compounded. That's why you never chase applause. Applause arrives when you're no longer dependent on it. Quiet work eventually becomes visible. Now that you understand visibility, let's talk about what separates leaders from participants. Leadership isn't loud. Leadership doesn't demand acknowledgement. Leadership is built through internal standards. You've built confidence privately. Now it's time to build standards that elevate you beyond convenience. Now you understand the truth. Your future is not built in public. Your future is built in your habits, in your private repetitions. In the decisions that no one praises. Your quiet discipline compounds first silently, then visibly, then powerfully. That's the key. You are not waiting for luck. You are not waiting for timing. You are not waiting for approval. You are building something heavy, slowly, and consistently, and that is why it will last.